We come to you from Cigar Inc.'s headquarters in sunny Los Angeles. And today we have a special guest, Mr. Zaya Younan.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us. Your name is, I believe it's Assyrian, correct?
Right.
Zaya Younan.
Right. Assyrian, yes.
Could you give me a little background info about your name, where you come from, your origins?
Sure. I'm Assyrian, Christian Assyrian. I was born in Iran, Tehran. At age of 13, we migrated to United States in 77. Mm-hmm. And since 1977, we've been in the United States. We've been living in this country.
And you've been in California, Southern California all this time?
No. Initially, we moved to Chicago. I went to school in Chicago, and then I worked in Detroit, and then I worked in several other states. And about 35 years ago, I moved to California. When my work moved here, I moved here in California.
I know you are very busy in different fields. You're a businessman. You were also, by profession, you're an engineer. Could you give me a little info, a little background about your story, the pathway?
Sure. As I told you, we moved in Chicago. I went to University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana. I graduated with an engineering degree. My first job was at General Motors. I worked in the design center in General Motors. And then I progressed in the different ranks of General Motors, different function of General Motors. And then from Detroit, I moved to Germany. And from Germany, I moved back to Chicago. And then I moved to several other states. And then I moved to other countries. And then I came back here. I had a couple startup companies. I developed startup companies in the field of software development for voice recognition technology. And we developed that company. And 3 years later, we sold it. And then I developed another company where I developed the first voice interactive navigation system, vehicle navigation system. This is in early 1990s where navigation were in the car, navigation wasn't used as a whole. And then I get in oil and gas business. We develop a special component for and all driven by engineering background, engineering knowledge, scientific approach to things. Then I was in oil and gas business. And after that, I get into the internet company where I worked for Network Communication. Network Communication was a company that developed VoIP over Internet Protocol. They were the first to develop it. And then I had several other startups. I don't need to bug you with all the details. And the company grew. I sold them, collectively. All the 5 companies sold for $3 billion. And then in 2002, I started Younan Companies, which was a new company, totally in different field, not a scientific field, totally different field.
So it's called Younan Companies.
Younan Companies, right. And today we are a private equity firm with about $6 billion in holding. And our assets majority of assets are commercial real estate, mid to high-rise buildings, some of the tallest buildings in the world, hotel, hospitality, restaurants, golf courses, tobacco, wine and spirit. Design, we're getting into a luxury design business. So we have a design agencies in Paris. So our assets are in 6 different countries, 1 U.S. and 5 European countries, and with over about 21,000 employees worldwide.
And what was your initial exposure to the cigar business? Is it something you personally dabbled in? It was something that you enjoyed in your leisure time? Or is it like a business move? What was your impetus for moving into this business?
Right. I get involved with cigar. I graduated at the age of 19 with my bachelor's degree at the University of Illinois. And my first job was with General Motors, I stated earlier. And I invented a few products that basically revolutionized the automotive industry. We don't need to get into the detail involved with that. And I became very much liked by the chairman of General Motors. And his name was Jack Smith. This is back in 1980s. And at that time, GM was the largest company in the world. Back. There was no Amazon. There was no Apple. GM was the largest company in the world. And he ended up liking me, my talent, what I've done. So he moved me to his office to work for him directly as an intern scientist, right?
Wow.
So I became very close to him. So at the age of 20, when I moved to his office working with him,
Were you kind of a protege for him, or
initially I wasn't. Back then, GM had 1.8 million employees worldwide, right?
Mm-hmm.
But after I invented several products in airbag, in keyless entry systems, PDS, part distance control, VTS, variable temperature seat, smart cruise control systems, he heard about me, right? A young kid from school is developing a lot of product, is issuing a lot of patents. And he called me to his office. He said I should work with him, not for him, but because with him. Because I said, I work for you. He says, no, you should work with me because you're smarter than I am. Because what you have done, I haven't done at age of 20. I haven't done at age of 68. He was 68 back then. So anyway, he took me, the first day working with him, he took me out to a restaurant. Back then in the restaurant, especially in Detroit, you could smoke. You could smoke cigars, cigarettes, whatever. And so far for our freedom has gone away, for so many years. But anyway, and we were sitting, and I'm 20 years old kid, and this is a 68 years old chairman of the biggest
You weren't
company.
intimidated by him?
No, I would never get intimidated by anybody. The only person I get intimidated by myself, not by any other people.
How about your dad?
Oh, absolutely not, no. So he says to me, do you smoke cigar? And at that time, I didn't smoke anything. I says, no, but I would love to try one. He says, okay, great, here. So I started smoking cigar then. And obviously next morning when I went to office, I was sitting in his office, basically as an assistant in his office. We would spend, during a day, we would smoke 2-3 cigars together in the office. So at age of 20, and I'm 61 right now, so I've been smoking for 41 years cigar. But before, I never smoked that much cigars. I was busy. Plus, I like cigar, but I never fell in love with them until I came across El Septimo and about 5 years ago, and it was company belonged to someone else. And
so you purchased this
company? I purchased the company, yeah. And King Abdullah, the king of Saudi Arabia, passed away 5 years ago. He used to, he gave me my first El Septimo. And when I smoked it, I fell in love with it, Instead of smoking 3 cigars a day, I started smoking 5 cigars a day. A week, instead of 3 a week, I smoke 5 a day.
The name El Septimo, initially I thought it was something that you picked because when I look at the design of your cigars, the iconography, the names, to me it has some kind of a religious or historical connotations to it. Right. Am I right in that?
Right. The El Septimo names, El Septimo company's been around for 24 years. So
so it's not a name that you picked?
Oh, no. Okay. This company was established in 2000. And the first cigar came out at 2005, 5 years later. Mm-hmm. And El Septimo in Spanish means the seventh.
The seventh.
And the 7 is a holy number for all religious because it took God 7 days to create heaven and earth. And is a very holy number, is a favorite number among literally everybody.
So it resonates with you.
It resonates with me, yeah. But of course, initially, I don't speak Spanish, so I didn't know what El Septimo means. What resonated with me was a taste and a quality and experience of smoking. Because often, cigar is a commitment for an hour and a half. You're smoking 15, 16, 17, 20 grams of tobacco, which is a lot. And if it overwhelms you or it doesn't meet your desire, right, it's easy to put it down and not think about it for another 3 days, right? But when the cigar is delicious, it calms you, it compliments you, it vacants you, it distresses you, it gives you a feeling of goodness, it makes you happy. Yeah. Then you basically, soon as you finish one, you want to light another one. So I tell you something.
Yeah, I can confirm with that because I've never smoked. I've never been a smoker myself, but I started smoking some of these cigars, and it's exactly how you describe it. You don't sense any aftertaste, and I sense all the notes, like natural notes, like black pepper.
Right.
It has a creamy taste.
Right.
And I wonder, how did you use your engineering background? Like, did you use your engineering background, your knowledge in other fields?
Of course, and we use the backbone, the science. Of course. Cigar industry is over 600 years old, right? It was discovered by Christopher Columbus in 1492, and after that it became very big because, back in 1400 there was no cigarette, there was no such thing as smoking. Christopher Columbus discovered that when he discovered Americas and where Indians were doing smoking them. So he took that to Europe, and it became a habit among the European, right, to smoke cigars. And as old as it is, 600 years old, and close to almost $100 billion industry worldwide, $100 billion industry worldwide. There really has been no innovation in it, right? There has been no improvement in it. There has been no evolution, because as every year goes by, humans become smarter. We learn from the things we don't know, and we learn from the experience we had in the past, right? So cigars were made pretty much the same as always. And I can confirm that because I bought a collection of cigars in France that they aged from 1800 to 20th century, right? A friend of mine, Philippe Boyer, had it in his collection, and he sold it to me. And the reason I bought it, I wanted to smoke those cigars to discover if there was any evolution done from beginning of the time to now. How did the cigar was made 1800, 1900, or early 20th century, right? And how does it taste?
Do they, like, I know with wine, it's or liquor, when they age, they get finer. Like the older wines are, they taste better. Is that the same with cigars? Like if they're
As
the
you know,
aging factor, or
know,
it gets worse? I don't know.
Good question. We know a lot about this because, as you know, we are one of the biggest wine producers in France, one of the biggest wine producers in the world. We have 4 vineyards, over 1,000 acres of producing wine in the finest region of the world, which is Bordeaux, Saint-Emilion, Grand Cru region. So we know a lot about blending. We know a lot about aging. We know a lot about fermentation because we learned that, and we've been doing this for a long time. As with any wine and tobacco, if the quality of the product is good, the product never dies. It breathes. And if you store it in the controlled environment, proper humidity, proper temperature, it could live forever. Same as wine, right?
I did not know that.
Right. But you can't take a bad wine, right? A wine that is made terribly, has too much sulfur in it, and is a single grape, and is not barreled properly. You stick it in a bottle and you let it sit for 1,000 years. It won't get any better. Matter of fact, it's going to get worse, right? But with the good product, you can age them forever, right? With wine, you can age them forever. And I have had wine, matter of fact, we have in our collection in France from 18th century. And every so often, we open one, right? We drink it. It's still a perfect, right?
Great.
But sometimes you buy in California wine that is 4 years old. You open it, it's terrible. So it has to be a good product from beginning.
I know there are a lot of things that we can cover with you. You're busy with wine, with everything. I'm very interested in that. But I want to circle back to using your expertise as an engineer and the improvements that you made. And once you took over El Septimo.
Great, good question. When we bought El Septimo about 3.5 years ago, they had 20 different blends of cigars, right? Today, 3.5 years later, they have 55 different blends of cigars. When we bought El Septimo used to only produce 10,000 cigars a year and was strictly confined to part of the Europe and part of Middle East. They used to be called cigar of the kings, so only kings used to smoke that cigars, right? It was very high quality, very high price product, right? And then back then, they used to make the cigar puro. Puro was all of the tobacco came from one region. When we bought it, we extended the line from 20 to 55 different cigars. All of their cigars was Maduro wrapper, dark wrapper. We introduced a lot of Connecticut lighter cigars. All of their cigars was big gauge and very large. We reduced the much smaller total and smaller size cigars. But the most important thing we done, they used to use grade A tobacco. Since we got involved, we find out there's a huge difference between grade A and grade AA. The grade AA is the best tobacco on the earth, right? So we start buying grade AA tobacco, and we bought tobacco, best tobacco from all the regions in the world, from Dominican Republic, from Nicaragua, from Ecuador, from Peru, from Brazil, from Mexico, from Costa Rica, and blended together to create a phenomenon, new notes that is unknown to the humankind. Because when you mix things together, the combination of different tobacco create new notes, a new taste that has not been recognized before.
So it's essentially it's a science on how
we use a lot of science. And also what we did, we are the first to discover a natural nicotine that comes from cigar is actually healthy for you. We were the first to write a white paper about it, 38-page white paper about it. And we were the first to identify the natural nicotine that is in the cigar is in tomato, potato, green pepper, eggplant, cauliflower, foods, vegetables that we eat all the time that are healthy for you. And then also we discover something about fermentation aging. We noticed that the taste of the cigar comes from the oil into the leaf and mainly into the vein, right? But the tobacco oil is mixed with ammonia. It's a combustion process that happens to the evolution of the growth, right? And nobody ever measured how to dissipate the ammonia and keep that natural oil in without evaporating it, right? So sometimes when they were aging it, not they were evaporating ammonia, they were also evaporating a lot of the oil of the natural oil of the nicotine, which produced the taste and good experience. So we learn to measure the thickness of the leaf. So we measure literally the thickness of every leaf before we select it.
Is that the one used for the wrapper of the cigar?
For all,
Leaves?
for
Yeah.
the wrapper, for the binder, for
I know,
the fillers.
as with many things, size does matter.
Actually, the only thing about the size that is important with cigar, when a cigar is bigger gauge, when a cigar has a thickness, has a bigger gauge, you're allowed to put more fillers in it. And as you put more fillers in it, you produce more additional flavors. So if you smoke a Lancero, which is a very thin cigar, right? It could come from 34 to 38 gauge cigar, right? Usually, because of the thickness of the cigar, you cannot put a lot of fillers in it. So a flavor profile of it is not very high. So the more different tobacco you put together, the more flavor you're going to get out of tobacco.
How did you bring that background and use it to improve your cigars?
Yeah,
El Septimo.
Right. So how did we include science?
Science, exactly.
In the farming of tobacco
The
industry?
scientific method in improving.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. About 30 years ago, it was a startup company called Satlock that was owned by Sam Walton, founder of Walmart, because he had a big wing of venture capital where he invests in the companies that develop technology for precision farming to make the farmer job easier, because he always felt that he got so much from community, he has to give something back to community. So I was involved 30 years ago in early stages of developing electronic devices, right? From differential GPS to soil sampling to moisture measurement. So when a farmer goes down his field in a combine, right, as he's driving his combine going down the field, he has exact precision data of what's the moisture level of the soil is, which area did he water, which area he didn't, where did he plant a seed, where he didn't. He can have all of that information in the screen in front of him. So I got involved 30 years ago, right, when I was 31 years old, in developing electronic for farming combines, for tractors, to improve the efficiency and productivity of a farmer in the field. So from there, I got involved a lot in soil analysis, in moisture analysis.
And these are things that now you use
Absolutely,
with
it's
your
all
company.
farming, right? So when I get into this industry, in cigar industry, I was a first cigar maker, right? First cigar maker that I knew more about farming and precision farming and science of farming than any other cigar maker that ever exists, right? Because as an engineer, as a scientist, I studied that for years, right? I developed equipment that we were selling it for Deere, John Deere, case for hundreds of millions of dollars, right? So I went into this industry and I felt there was so much missing in it. There was so much space for improvement, and I was shocked that nobody really utilized it. So I said, this is a great opportunity for me to get in and do this. And I got in and I do this. And when you smoke El Septimo cigar, you notice the difference than other cigars, because there is science in El Septimo, where in the other cigar is a traditional farming, seat of the pants analysis that produce a wow product that is all blah, is all same.
I want to go back to my question about the relevance of the names and iconology that you use in your cigars.
Yeah,
And the names that you use for different collections.
Of course. We use art, we use science, we use history, and we use religious figures that to name our cigar and to blend our brands around them, right? Like, for example, sacred art is created around the 7 days that it took God to create heaven and earth. And every day we create a cigar for Monday all the way to Sunday. And every day it represents the day what happened. For example, if God created heaven and earth on one day, we go to the earliest painter that captured that day painting, and we name a cigar after it.
Da Vinci, I would
Da
assume.
Vinci, Buccelli, Michelangelo, Salvador Dali, and so forth, right? Which happens to be mainly European artists from back then, long time ago. And emperor collection goes after famous emperors in the world. From beginning of the time, King Sargon, Assyrian king, to Napoleon, to Yao, one of the most accomplished Chinese emperor, to Queen Sheba, which Queen Sheba, I was inspired by a friend of mine who's an African-American congressman who asked me one day to design a cigar to represent a beauty of African-American heritage. Right? So we spent a lot of time researching it, trying to find out. First, you have to find out what the name of the cigar would be, what the complexity of cigar would be. And as we studied these for months, believe it or not, we learned that 3,000 years ago, 1,000 years before birth of the Christ, actually, there was a queen. There was a queen that she became queen at early ages in Africa, and her name was Queen Sheba. And when she became a queen, she was 21 years old. And by age of 24, she had conquered all Africa and literally 70% of the Middle East.
So you named this cigar after that
After
queen.
her, right. And not only she was a very intelligent woman, very intelligent queen and emperor, she was also one of the wealthiest person on the earth back then. Because back then she conquered the area that was full of minerals and everything else.
And I would assume that the taste of the cigar, it's very rich, it's very flavorful.
Actually,
and there might be a connection.
Actually, we did very good. We did an innovation that has never been done in cigar history because they're not deep enough to think about stuff like this. Queen Sheba, at the age of 24, was told by one of her advisors that there is another smart king that is as smart as her, and his name is King Solomon in Israel. So she was surprised by who this individual is that is as smart as her. So she decided to go visit him. And she took tremendous amount of gifts, golds, stones, because back then, if you want to go see another king, you have to give him a gift,
to bring
right?
offerings.
Right, offering. And she took all that to him, and she thought once she gave him all this offering, he would be pleased with her, and he will court her. Court her means he will spend time talking to her. So she gave him all the offering, but he wasn't pleased. He just says, thank you, and he turned his head to the next guy.
It was just another Monday for him.
Exactly, exactly. So at that time, she was so smart. She knew because the spice and the salt was invented in Africa, right? I mean,
And by the way, I sense like heavy notes of spice,
Exactly.
black pepper in your cigar.
Exactly. Spices and salt was invented by African nation, right? And that's what Africa became biggest continent in the world because they had a lot to trade with. So back then, we're talking about 3,000 years ago, 957 years exactly before birth of the Christ. There was no salt, there was no pepper in the rest of the world, right? So people used to eat their food without any spices, without any salt. So at that time, when she noticed that she didn't impress the King Solomon with all that gold and jewelry, she asked him
She
if
wanted
he
to
would,
spice it up a little bit.
so she asked him if he opened his mouth and he would try the spice from Africa. And when he put it in his mouth, that was the first time he had flavor in his mouth of the spices and so forth. And he was so impressed with that not only he courted her, he spent time talking to her, but then 3 months later he married her.
Wow.
And King Solomon in Israel had a son with Queen Sheba that became the greatest ruler of Africa. And if you buy, that spice is almost 10,000 years old. And if you smoke Queen Sheba, you will taste that spice in the 5 minutes of smoking and the last 15 minutes of cigar.
And that's from the Emperor's collection.
That's from Emperor. And that spice came exactly from Africa. So we had to research it. We have to find which region in Africa, what's the name of the spice, how was it produced, and bring it here.
This is great historical context. But when I think of cigars, I think more contemporary like figures that are well known around the world for being great cigar aficionados, like Churchill comes to mind, Fidel Castro comes to mind. He's always, all the pictures, he's with a cigar. Who are some of these people that when you think of a cigar, more recent?
Well, it doesn't mean if you have a cigar in your mouth, you got cigar aficionado, right? Because cigar aficionado means someone that understands.
How would you describe that?
Someone that understands tobacco, someone that understands the flavor, someone that I can explain the flavor profile. He could literally draw the profile of the flavor because cigars has transition. Someone who can basically explain it and draw the transition for you. But Churchill was definitely a cigar aficionado because Churchill, toward late 19th century, he was a war correspondent working in Cuba for British government. And then at early age, he became exposed to cigars. And he started smoking cigars. Churchill used to smoke 8 to 10 cigars a day. And the end of it, when he wouldn't ash it or throw it away, he used to chew it.
Wow.
So essentially, he's one of the few people that used to consume the entire cigar. So once he smoked most of it, what was left of it, right, the knob of it,
he would ingest it.
He would put it in his mouth and he would chew it rather than put it in the ashtray.
So let's say the cigars that you have in your company, like right now, if you wanted to pick a selection for a well-known figure, like because Churchill is not alive, somebody like a famous actor like Arnold, what would you recommend for him? Like if you wanted to select a few cigars that you would think he would enjoy.
Right. People like that, because of their age, because of the number of years that they may smoke a cigar, they enjoy full-body cigar with high profile of flavors and so forth. For someone like Arnold, I would recommend our Emperor Collection Wharton. The size is exactly what he likes, 7 inches long. Has a 58 gauge, which he likes to bite on his cigar, so he holds it in his mouth. If you notice, he never holds a cigar in his hand. He always bites it, holds it in his mouth. So it's a perfect in it. And it's got a Maduro wrapper, Habana Rosado wrapper. So it's full of flavor, it's the right size, it's the right gauge. And it would entertain him, right? Because I know actually he loves that particular cigar, right? But a lot of famous figures you might not know, they were advocate cigar smoker. Coco Chanel, Marilyn Monroe, people like Mark Twain. Mark Twain always had cigar in his mouth. Matter of fact, it was Mark Twain said, if they don't sell cigars in heaven, I don't want to go to heaven. Right? So a lot of famous people, a lot of important people discover cigar because it was a way of relaxing them. It was a way to adding value to their life, and they start smoking it. And that's the reason why cigar is such a prominent right now and is growing so fast among all ages.
I think it will be actually a great idea if you could like use your expertise and pick a collection and
that's a good way.
For someone who would enjoy it.
Great.
For a famous person who's alive and who's well known for smoking cigars, like an Arnold.
Right.
And
for someone,
we can do that right now.
Sure, absolutely. For someone like Arnold, I would definitely recommend Zaya Collection. Zaya Collection, there are 10 cigars in that collection. They're all Maduro cigars. They're all medium to strong cigars, full of flavor. The tobacco is aged 15 years, so it's fermented perfectly, right? And it's a big gauge. So someone like Arnold will definitely like Zaya's Collection, right? Someone like Sylvester Stallone, right? Sylvester Stallone has a different profile than Arnold, right? Because maybe
how is it different?
Maybe Arnold came from Austria, right? They're heavy meat eaters and they eat a lot of spice. Sylvester Stallone is more American. The spice is important for them, but not significant amount of spice. For him, I recommend Lexus Collection, right? Which they are again Maduro, but they are not as strong as Zaya Collection. Full flavor, the tobacco is aged 10 years, right? He will love that cigars, right? Sacred Art Collection will go for someone like Steve Harvey, which is a good friend of mine. He loves Sacred Art Collection because there's a combination of Maduro and Connecticut wrapper. They're mild cigars, full of flavors, very light, creaminess. Some people like creaminess. Some people have a sweet tooth. They like to have the creaminess, sugar in the cigar. Some people don't. Sacred Art definitely has that, right? And it comes Emperor Collection, right? Emperor Collection is a is a little bit stronger cigar. People like, for example, Emmanuel Macron, the president of France.
Oh, I didn't know he was a
Yeah, he's
cigar
a smoker.
smoker.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. A lot of people. He loves that. He loves those cigars because they are elevated Connecticut. They are subdued Maduro. Right? So there are subdued Maduro and elevated Connecticut. So we find a perfect spot in there to create cigar with 7 years aged tobacco that it gives you unbelievable exposure into the taste, into the quality, and so forth, right? And then after that, you have the culinary collection, right? Culinary collection, I was inspired by designing it about the famous chef, one of the world's most famous chefs, which is a good friend of mine, Alain Ducasse in France. He has more 1, 2, 3 Michelin restaurants in the world than anybody ever existed, right? And funny thing is, all of the Michelin star chefs, all of the chefs that I know of, majority of them smoke cigar. They love smoking cigar, right? They complement it with food. They complement it with wine and
great
spirit,
collection.
right? So, but remember, the chef have an unbelievable palate. What makes him a great chef is not only their skill, but also the ability to tell the notes, ability and palates that they have. So they wanted me to design a cigar for the 4 regions that produce the best liquor and the food. So for that, we went to Bordeaux.
And by the way, just a note, I don't mean to interrupt you, but this is something we also want to discuss, but hopefully in another episode, because I know that you have a lot of you're very active in the wine and liquor.
So culinary was designed after Alain Ducasse, which is one of the most awarded chef in the world, that is a father of the developing of the Michelin quality restaurant and food.
Great. So I think we should take this opportunity and pick a few cigars and get that collection ready and hopefully present it to let's say a famous actor like Arnold.
How do you know they're not even smoking it right now as we speak?
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask, do you think they're going to switch over to El Septimo if they're not smoking it right
it's
now?
funny. I don't want our podcast to be a marketing thing for me, right? I'm an engineer, so I tell the truth, the science, and nothing more. But smoking El Septimo cigar, it gives you experience that you never felt, no matter how many years you smoke other cigars. And almost every person that I met that started smoking El Septimo did not go back to the other brands or other cigars after that. And I don't blame them, because when I smoke El Septimo, before I found El Septimo, I used to smoke all the cigars in the world, right? When I discovered El Septimo, I couldn't smoke any other cigar. There was such a big difference between the two, right? So I ended up buying a company because I couldn't buy enough of the cigars, right? I mean, the first day that I bought the company, believe it or not, I smoked for 32 hours straight without sleeping in Switzerland, Geneva, Switzerland, because I wanted to taste all of them, right?
So you tried
all
everything
of
you
them,
could.
most of the times. You know, it's funny with us as we get older, we like certain habits, drinks, for example, but we control ourselves. We can't drink too much, right? Because you get drunk and it overcomes you, right? So you starting something that you enjoy, but then you enjoy it because you don't know when to stop, right?
Exactly.
You start watching yourself to stop. With cigar, you get all that pleasure and more, and you don't have to stop. You can continue to smoke until you want to, right? I mean, I tell you, my quality of life has been much better. My stress level has gone down, and I smoke 8 to 10 a day, right? Because I love smoking cigar, and I'm 61 years old. I'm in perfect health, and there is nothing wrong with the natural nicotine. Actually, natural nicotine is healthy for you because it is in most of the vegetables and fruits that you eat every day, like tomato, potato, eggplant, green pepper, cauliflower, right? And you can Google all of this, right? So don't listen to the people that don't understand the science of natural nicotine. And again, I'm talking about natural nicotine, which is in cigars, not cigarettes or anything else.
On that note, I think we should take a shot.
Absolutely,
of your
yeah.
very delicious cognac.
Yeah. Is an excellent cognac.
Cheers to you and to health.
Absolutely.
Very rich.
Wow. And yet very smooth and soft. Unbelievable product. Smells like perfume.
What's the name of this?
El Septimo.
El Septimo.
Yeah.
Oh, the same name.
Yeah. El Septimo produces 12 different kinds of cognac, aged anywhere from 10 years to 80 years.
And
So,
what's your recommendation for matching cigars and liquor? Is there? I would assume there is a link between like
it is.
what cigar goes well with
Right.
what.
When you smoke a cigar lasts you longer than a drink, right? A drink, you can go to a glass in 20 minutes. Cigar will take you an hour and a half, right? So when I start smoking cigar in the early afternoon, I like to always pair it with the cold, sweet liquor, right? Because the day is hot, the cigar makes you hotter, so you want something to cool you down. So I love smoking cigar initially, my start in afternoon, early afternoon, with the glass of cold white wine, right? Mm-hmm. And then after that, I transition from cold white wine to red wine. And after that, I finish off at the end of the night with cognac. So I go with each cigar, 3 different, pair it with the wine and spirit.
And what cigar do you choose?
It depends. As I told you,
Let's
we
say
have
with the
55
cognac, like
back.
with this, what
with the
what
cognac,
would you recommend?
With the cognac, you definitely have to smoke Maduro cigar, not a Connecticut, because it overwhelms the Connecticut, right? Connecticut goes perfectly with wine because wine has an alcohol level 15% and below. Cognac has an alcohol level of 45% and above, right? So with the creamy cigars like Connecticut, definitely wine. With the cognac,
The richer,
definitely, yeah,
something like
absolutely.
Maduro. Cognac.
Definitely with cognac.
What does your wife think? Your family, and I know that it hasn't. You say that it's positively affected your health. What does your wife think?
It's funny. I've been married to my wife for 34 years, and my wife smokes 3 to 4 cigars a day, every day.
Wow. Did you?
Yeah. Actually, when I go home at night, the first thing she hands me is a lit cigar, and the second thing she hands me is a glass of wine. I mean, that's how we start our afternoon together. And my children, I have 5 children. The youngest one is 20 years old, and the oldest one is 30. They all smoke cigar. Matter of fact, we always get together for dinner. Sometimes we smoke cigar. We smoke cigar on the weekend. I love smoking cigar with my wife. I love smoking cigar with my kids. It's funny, if you want to sit down across the table, talk to your kids, you get their attention for 5 minutes, right? But when they have a cigar in their hand, they'll sit across from you for 2-3 hours and talk to you. So as soon as my kids get to my house from their home, the first thing I do is light a cigar, I give it to them, and then we sit down, we have a long conversation. So my family loves smoking cigar.
Wow. So I mean, that's a great indication. Like when you want your family to smoke cigars, you're okay with that? That means that.
Oh, of course. If cigar
Obviously.
is, first of all, I'm a scientist. I have over 1,800 patents worldwide. I would never give something to my family, my children, that would harm them. Never. Right? So I feel very comfortable. I'm a scientist. I study the field of nicotine, natural nicotine, more than anybody else in the world has studied. That's why I personally issue a 38-page medical report about the detailed scientific aspect of compounds found in natural nicotine. If cigar was bad, I would never have my wife and my children smoke it. Absolutely.
What is your son's favorite cigar, by the way?
Well, I have different. My youngest son is 20 years old. He plays Division I basketball for Utah. He loves smoking Connecticut cigars. He loves smoking Napoleon, Connecticut, right? Because he's tall guy, he's 6'8". The Napoleon is almost 10 inches. So he loves smoking that. My daughter, she's 25 years old. She loves smoking Alexandra Collection, which is named after her, which is both Coco Chanel and Marilyn Monroe. She smokes those all the time. And my other 3 boys rotate. They go to all of them. They stay away usually from a stronger Zaya Collection because it's for, it's got a lot of rich taste. It's for older people and so forth, but they smoke Lexus Collection, Sacred Art Collection, Emperor Collection all the time.
Obviously, you believe that there's a lot of benefits to smoking cigars, but this is I feel like this is contrary to popular belief. For years now, I don't know when it started, but I would assume like 3 decades ago, there has been a great drive by the health departments in many countries, banning smoking, and a popular belief is that smoking is bad for you. I know it's a big, it's something that we can talk about more, delve into it more in another episode. But I want to get your view on what you think of the relationship between nicotine. I mean, obviously, you believe that it has like many health benefits. Why is it that I feel like there is a drive to ban it, to say that it's bad for your health, and I feel like there's a contradiction here.
Yeah, and there is. Let's stop talking about politics because I never understand it. But let's talk about science, right? Science that you can Google it and verify it, right? First of all, you don't compare cigar nicotine to cigarette nicotine. Cigar nicotine is natural. It all comes from the leaf created by God, right? Cigarette, it has close to 600 to 1,200 additive. They have all kinds of chemical adding to it, right? Outside of the cigarette is paper. It's not a tobacco. Inside there is benzene.
So the filler, what is that? How is
35% of the filler is actual tobacco. The rest is compound.
Oh, okay.
That's why when you light a cigarette, it never turns off because the combustion is going chemically, not naturally, chemically, right? So let's not talk about cigarette because I don't consider cigarette a natural nicotine. It's a modified chemically induced nicotine. And cigarette is bad for you. You should not smoke it. I never smoked it. I'll never let anybody related to me to smoke cigarette. That is definitely bad for you, and they should be banned and it should be off the market. Cigar is natural nicotine, right? It's a natural nicotine, and I think that's where people have lost it in translation. It's a natural nicotine. There is no additive in majority of the cigars. It's a natural vegetation that grows from
and it's
the
not
soil.
addictive.
And it's not addictive. I smoke 8 to 10 cigars a day. I could go without smoking cigar for 3 or 4 days. It doesn't bother me. If it was addictive, I wouldn't be able to do that. So natural nicotine is not addictive. Natural nicotine, if you Google this, natural nicotine actually helps reduce the progression of dementia, Alzheimer's, reduce strokes by 52%, right? It is a number one killer in the United States is stress. It reduced the stress in the human body because it reduced the inflammation in the human body, right? So scientifically speaking, natural nicotine is not harmful for you. It's actually good for you.
Great. And this is something I would love for you to come back so we can delve
Absolutely.
into it more, because I believe there is a misconception.
I think, it's funny. You have a politician who are banning smoking cigar, which is all natural.
Yeah, and I want to discuss
And
the
then-
connection between
Absolutely.
politics and how it's affecting these policies.
Right. I mean, just to finish it off, just to show how intelligent our politician friends are, they're trying to ban smoking cigar, which is natural nicotine, and they are allowing people smoke marijuana and chemically that could change your behavior and change the composite of who you are and what you do. So it just doesn't make sense. But one recommendation I have to close this, and we can laugh it off, is that I have learned one thing 61 years living in this country. I live my life the way I think is the best for me to live my life. And I will not let any politician to modify that, right?
Exactly. And that's what America is about. And, that's why we came here.
Yeah.
To be free and do what we want to do. And, I thank you for coming here. And this is something that I want to discuss with you more in following episodes.
Next
Thank
time.
you.
Pleasure. Thank you so much. Let's shake a hand and finish this beautiful cognac here. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.